The mimosas were already flowing by the time I pulled into my parents' driveway. I could hear the laughter from outside. I knew that laughter. It only sounds like that when Kate is the center of attention and everyone else is just there to fill the seats. I sat in my car for 30 seconds, not because I was nervous. I just needed to switch something off before I walked in. A part of me that feels things too loud. I turned it down, then I got out. Mom had set up the long table under the pergola with the good plates, the ones that only come out when Kate has something to announce. Dad was already at the head of the table, laughing at something Kate had just said. Jocelyn Roth was there too, pressed close to Kate's side, nodding at everything like a woman being paid to agree. I sat down. Nobody looked up. Kate was mid-story. Something about a client in Sydney who had begged her to redesign their entire penthouse. She used her hands when she talked, big gestures. Everything about Kate was designed to take up space. I poured myself a glass of water and listened. Kate's interior design business, Luxe & Co., had been running for 3 years. According to Kate, it was thriving. According to our family, she was a genius. According to Mum, she was proof that the Wilkinson name meant something. I am also a Wilkinson. Nobody mentioned that part. To my family, I work in data processing for a medical admin company. $48,000 a year, 1-bedroom unit in Footscray. I drive a 2019 Hyundai that needs new tires. I wear plain clothes, and I don't have strong opinions at the dinner table. I have held that cover for 4 years. What they don't know is that I am a senior forensic accountant. I consult directly with the Australian Federal Police on financial crime cases. I helped bring down 3 separate fraud networks in the last 2 years. My security clearance is higher than anything my father, a retired bank manager, ever held in his entire career. Being invisible was never a flaw. It was always the point. Kate leaned across the table toward me mid-conversation, champagne in hand, eyes bright with something that looked like warmth but wasn't. She said, and I will remember these exact words for the rest of my life, "You're not doing anything with that credit score anyway, Abs. Someone in this family should put it to use." Then she laughed and clinked her glass against my water. Jocelyn laughed. Mum smiled into her drink. Dad didn't react at all, which was its own kind of answer. I didn't laugh. I didn't flinch. I looked at Kate for 2 seconds, then looked back down at my plate. Because she had said something very specific, not a joke, not a hypothetical. She said someone in this family should put it to use, present tense, should, as in it was already being considered, or already done. I excused myself 20 minutes later. I said I had a work deadline. Mum told me not to forget my cardigan on the hook by the door. Kate was already back to talking before I reached the gate. I drove home at exactly the speed limit. Inside my unit, I put my keys on the counter, sat down at my desk, and ran a full credit check on myself. The result came back in under a minute. There was a personal loan on my file, $85,000, originated 6 weeks ago. Private credit firm out of Brisbane. The address on the application was not my current address. It was a P.O. box I had closed 2 years ago. I stared at the screen. I wasn't angry. Anger is a reaction. Reactions are for people who are surprised. I wasn't surprised. I opened a new folder on my desktop. I didn't name it after my sister. I named it WK01. Case file. Subject unknown. Evidence collection in progress. Then I started typing.
I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was upset. I didn't sleep because I was working. Most people who discover a loan in their name would panic. They would call the bank. They would call their sister. They would cry on the phone to their mom and wait for someone to fix it. That's what my family would expect me to do. That's what the old Abby would have done, the Abby they think they know. But I am not that Abby. I opened my secured work laptop, the one that doesn't look like anything special from the outside, but runs encrypted software I use on AFP-linked cases. I pulled up every database I had legitimate access to: public records, business registrations, credit filings, court documents. I started with the loan. $85,000, private lender. The application had been submitted online 6 weeks ago. The IP address used to lodge it was not mine. The signature on the digital form was my name, but not my hand. The contact email on the account was a variation of my name I had never used. Someone had built a version of me from scratch and used it to borrow money. I already knew who. I needed to know everything else. I moved to Lux & Co. Kate's business looked impressive from the outside: a sleek website, a curated Instagram full of marble benchtops and imported furniture, testimonials from clients with double-barreled surnames. Mum had framed a feature article about Kate from a local lifestyle magazine and hung it in the hallway. But social media is just evidence of spending. It tells you nothing about income. I pulled the actual business records. In the last 8 months, Lux & Co. had 3 unpaid supplier invoices referred to debt collection. There were 2 WorkSafe lodgements from contractors who said they hadn't been paid. The studio Kate leased in South Yarra, the one she posted about constantly, the one Mum called her empire, had an overdue rent notice filed against it 5 weeks ago. The Range Rover Kate drove to brunch, I checked the registration. It was a novated lease through the business, 2 payments behind. I sat back in my chair. The business wasn't thriving, it was bleeding. Kate had been spending at the level of success while operating at the level of collapse, and when the gap between those 2 things got too wide to manage, she didn't cut back. She used me. I kept going. I cross-referenced the IP address from my loan application against other credit inquiries made from the same device. This is standard practice in fraud investigation. People who forge one document rarely forge just one. What came back made me go very still. The same IP address had accessed 2 other lending portals in the past 4 months. The first was a personal loan application for $40,000. The applicant was Blake Wilkinson, my father. The second was a credit card application for a limit of $30,000. The applicant was Bethany Wilkinson, my mother. I pulled both files. The signatures were cut and pasted from old documents. Clumsy work, the kind of thing that takes minutes when you're desperate and not thinking clearly. Both accounts had been opened, and both had been drawn down to almost nothing. Dad's loan, gone. Mom's card, maxed. I opened the transaction records. The money hadn't gone to the business, not really. $30,000 had gone to the venue deposit for an event called the Lux & Co. Gala, $12,000 to a catering company, $8,000 to a florist, $6,000 to a PR firm. The rest scattered across luxury purchases I recognized from Kate's Instagram. A handbag, a trip to Bali she had posted about in March with the caption, "Investing in my vision." Kate had not borrowed from our parents, she had stolen from them, and they had no idea. I sat with that for a moment. My parents had defended her at that table. Mum had waved off what Kate did to me like it was a minor inconvenience. Dad had told me to adjust my attitude. They looked at me like I was the problem, like I was jealous and small and difficult, all while Kate was quietly emptying their accounts in the background. I didn't feel satisfaction. I want to be clear about that. There was nothing satisfying about finding out that the 2 people who raised me were being financially destroyed by the daughter they had spent a lifetime protecting. What I felt was colder than that. I felt the specific clarity that comes when every piece of a case locks into place and you can see exactly how it ends. I saved everything. I backed it up to a secure server. I printed the key documents and put them in a folder. Then I picked up my phone and sent a message to Spencer Newman. Spencer was my AFP contact. We had worked 4 cases together. He was thorough, he was straight, and he did not waste time. The message was short. I have something, not a referral, personal. I need a conversation before I decide how to proceed. He replied in 11 minutes. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., you know where. I closed my laptop, made a coffee I didn't drink, and sat at my kitchen table in the dark. Kate was throwing a launch party in 3 weeks, the Lux & Co. Gala. She had been talking about it for months. In her mind, it was the moment everything became real, the moment the world recognized what she always believed she was. She had no idea she was planning her own ending. But before I let that happen, I was going to give her one chance, not because I owed her mercy, because a clean case requires documented proof that the subject was given the opportunity to stop and chose not to. I needed her to say no to my face.
I met Spencer the next morning at a cafe near the AFP offices in Melbourne, CBD. Corner table. He was already there when I arrived, flat white in front of him. No small talk. I put the folder on the table. He didn't touch it straight away. He looked at me first. "How close is this to you?" he asked. "It's my sister." He nodded slowly. "How clean is the evidence?" "Clean enough that I'm sitting here instead of calling a lawyer." He opened the folder. I watched his face as he went through it. Spencer Newman had been in financial crime for 11 years. He had seen everything. But I watched something shift behind his eyes when he got to the pages about my parents. He didn't say anything. He just turned the page and kept reading. When he finished, he closed the folder and pushed it back toward me. "You know what this is," he said. "I know exactly what it is. Identity theft, wire fraud, and the parent accounts push it into elder financial abuse territory under the criminal code. I know." "Abby," he said my name carefully. "Once you hand this to me formally, it moves fast. There's no slowing it down." "I'm not here to slow it down," I said. "I'm here to do it right. I want to give her a chance to come clean first, on record." Spencer looked at me for a moment. "You're going to wear a wire?" "I'm going to use my phone. Voice memo. Clearly audible. Time-stamped. She won't know." "And if she admits it?" "She will," I said. "She can't help herself." I drove to my parents' house on a Wednesday afternoon. I had timed it deliberately. Mum would be home, Dad would be home. Kate had mentioned she was coming over to show Mum fabric samples for the gala venue. I pressed record on my phone before I unlocked the front door. Mum was in the kitchen. Kate was at the dining table with a laptop open and fabric swatches spread out in front of her. She looked up when I walked in, a quick flash of irritation before she smoothed it over. "Abs," she said. "Didn't know you were coming." "I need to talk to you. Alone." Kate sighed like I had asked her to do something exhausting. She closed the laptop and followed me down the hall to Dad's study. I shut the door behind us. I didn't sit down, neither did she. "There's a loan on my credit file, $85,000. The application used my name, my tax file number, and an old address of mine. The signature isn't mine." Kate crossed her arms. "Okay." "Just that. Okay." "Did you open that account?" I asked. She looked at me the way she had been looking at me our entire lives, like I was a mild inconvenience, like I was a speed bump on a road she was always going to drive down anyway. "I needed a bridge. The business had a short-term cash flow issue. It's already being managed." You used my identity without my permission. She used your name, like there was a difference. You weren't using it. Your credit score is just sitting there doing nothing, and I needed it. It was practical. I kept my voice flat. I need you to pay it off or transfer the debt into your own name. She laughed, short and sharp. I can't do that right now. My debt-to-income ratio is complicated. You wouldn't understand the structure. Then explain it to me. Something changed in her face then. The performance dropped just slightly. What came through underneath wasn't anger. It was something more honest than that. It was resentment, old and deep. You want to know the truth, Abs? She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. I didn't just need the money. I needed you to have some skin in the game for once. You sit there in your little flat with your little savings and your little budget, and you look at me like I'm the mess, like I'm the messy one. But you've never risked anything. You've never tried anything. You just watch. So you committed fraud to teach me a lesson? I said. I used your old P.O. box address on purpose, and she smiled when she said it. Actually smiled. Default notices go there. You wouldn't have found out for months. By then, your credit would have taken the hit, and maybe you'd understand what it actually feels like to struggle, instead of just judging people who do. I looked at her. She had just told me she engineered the loan to fail, deliberately. She hadn't just stolen from me, she had designed it to hurt me specifically. Before I could respond, the door opened. Mum walked in. Dad was behind her. They'd heard the raised voices from the kitchen. What is going on? Dad asked. Gabriella is making accusations again, Kate said immediately. Her voice shifted completely, soft, wounded. She's saying I stole from her. I'm trying to explain it was a business arrangement, and she's turning it into a whole thing. It wasn't a business arrangement. She forged my signature and took out a loan in my name. I just asked her to fix it. She told me she did it on purpose to destroy my credit. Mum looked at me, and I watched her make the choice. I watched her make the decision in real time. Abby, Kate is under enormous pressure right now. The gala is in 3 weeks. She doesn't need this. You're being dramatic. She committed a crime, Mum. She borrowed against your name, Dad said. His voice was firm, final. That's what family does. We support each other. If you can't do that, then I don't know what you're doing here. I looked at them, standing together. My sister with her arms crossed and her chin up. My mother with that dismissive wave she used when she wanted a conversation to be over. My father with the expression he always wore when he had already decided I was wrong. They were a wall. They had always been a wall. Okay, I said. I turned around and walked down the hall. I picked up my keys from the bowl by the front door. I walked out. I sat in my car at the curb and I did not move for 2 minutes. Then I opened my phone and stopped the recording. 1 hour and 14 minutes, every word. Kate confessing to the loan, Kate confessing to the deliberate default, Mum and Dad dismissing it. All of it time-stamped and clean. I typed a message to Spencer. I have the recording. She didn't just admit it, she explained it. We're ready. He replied in 4 minutes. I'll start the paperwork tonight. The gala is our window. I put the car in gear and pulled away from the curb. Kate thought that conversation had ended in her favor. She thought I had walked out because I had no power. She thought the wall had worked again. She didn't know she had just handed me everything I needed. She had 3 weeks left.
The venue was a function room at a hotel in South Yarra. 200 guests, soft lighting, flowers on every table, Kate's logo projected on the wall behind the stage. Jocelyn had been managing the RSVPs for weeks, like it was the most important night of her life. In a way, it was. Spencer and I entered through the service corridor at the back, 6 AFP officers with us, plain clothes, no sirens. The plan was simple. Let Kate get on that stage. Let her feel the room. Let her believe she had won. Then walk in. I heard the room before I saw it. Music, laughter, 200 people with champagne feeling like they were somewhere that mattered. I spotted Mom and Dad near the bar. Dad in his good jacket, Mom in her occasion dress, both of them smiling like they had personally built everything in that room. They had no idea what Kate had done to them. Kate was already on stage, mid-speech, something about vision, about a woman who takes risks while everyone else plays it safe. She paused for effect the way she always did. Then she saw me. Confusion first, then recognition, then that flicker of irritation she could never fully hide when I showed up somewhere she hadn't planned for me to. She laughed into the microphone. "Oh my God, everyone, that's my little sister Abby. She actually came to support me. I'm shocked." The room laughed. A few heads turned. I kept walking. Kate's smile stayed, but her eyes changed. She could see I wasn't alone. She stepped back from the microphone. "What are you doing?" she said, not a question, flat and low. "Abby, what is this?" One of Spencer's officers cut the music at the back of the room. The silence landed hard. "Kate Wilkinson," I said. My voice carried clearly across the room, no raised pitch, no performance. "I am a forensic accountant working with the AFP Financial Crimes Unit. I have been building a case file against you for 3 weeks. You are being arrested tonight for identity theft, fraudulent credit applications in my name, fraudulent credit applications in the names of Blake and Bethany Wilkinson, and elder financial abuse under the Commonwealth Criminal Code." Kate came off the stage fast. "You need to stop talking," she said, quietly, up close now, her voice tight. "Get these people out of my event." I didn't move. She turned to the room. "She's lying. She's been jealous of me her entire life, and this is what that looks like. Mom, Dad." She looked past me to where our parents were standing. Dad had gone pale. Mom had her hand over her mouth. I walked the folder over to Dad, not to Kate, to Dad. "The loan in your name, $40,000, opened from Kate's home IP address 4 months ago. This is the signature page." He looked down at it. "That's not my signature." His voice came out thin. "No." I pulled out the next page. "Mom's credit card, 30,000 limit, maxed, same IP, same method. The money from both accounts paid for this room, the venue, the catering, the flowers, every bit of it." Mom sat down on the nearest chair like the legs had gone out under her. Dad looked up from the documents and looked at Kate. Kate had nothing. 34 years of being the golden child, the winner, the one the family pointed to. She had a speech prepared tonight, a vision board, a PR strategy, a room full of witnesses to her arrival. She had not prepared for this. "I was going to pay it back," she said. Her voice had gone small. "After the launch, I had a plan. I just needed more time." "You forged my signature," Dad said. "I needed the capital." "You forged my signature." He said it again, slower, like the words meant something different the second time. Mom didn't speak. She just sat there staring at the floor of the room her daughter had decorated with her stolen money. I stepped back and let Spencer take it from there. Kate didn't run. After everything, she just stood there and let it happen. The handcuffs were quiet. The room was quiet. The only sound was Jocelyn somewhere near the back saying, "Oh my God," into her phone. As Spencer walked her toward the exit, Kate turned back once and looked at me. I don't know what she was looking for. I looked back at her, and I didn't give it to her. She turned away. I walked over to my parents one last time. Dad still had the documents in his hand. Mom hadn't moved from the chair. "Call a lawyer tomorrow, both of you. There are financial recovery options. You'll need help navigating them." That was all I had for them. I picked up my folder and walked out through the service corridor, into the car park, into the quiet. I sat in my car and I did not feel triumphant. I felt the specific weight of a thing that needed to happen and finally had. I started the engine and drove home at exactly the speed limit. The room Kate had built with stolen money was still full of people when I left. By morning, it would be a news story. By the end of the week, it would be a case number. But that night, it was just a mess someone else would have to clean up.
The hearing was 4 months later. Federal court doesn't look like it does on television. There's no drama, no gasping crowd, no moment where someone breaks down and confesses on the stand. It's paperwork made physical, documents read aloud, numbers confirmed, a judge who has seen it all before and has no interest in theatre. Kate stood in front of the bench in a plain grey suit. Her hair was down, no blowout, no highlights. The platinum blonde she had maintained her entire adult life had grown out, and the roots were dark. She looked ordinary. That was the thing that struck me most. She just looked like a person. Jocelyn wasn't there. Braylon Powell, the investor Kate had been courting at the gala, had pulled out 2 days after the arrest and filed his own complaint. Spencer told me later that 3 of Kate's former clients had come forward with additional fraud claims once the story broke. She hadn't just done this to us. We were just the ones she thought would never fight back. The judge read the charges: identity theft, fraudulent credit applications, obtaining financial advantage by deception, elder financial abuse, 4 counts total. Kate had entered a guilty plea 2 weeks earlier on the advice of her lawyer. There would be no trial. The judge looked at Kate over the top of her glasses. She said the court had considered the deliberate and calculated nature of the offending, the targeting of family members, including elderly parents, the absence of genuine remorse in the initial period following the arrest. Kate's lawyer had submitted a letter. Kate had written it herself, apparently. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. The sentence was 3 years and 4 months, to be served in a minimum security facility, eligible for parole at the 18-month mark, subject to good behaviour and completion of a financial rehabilitation program. Full restitution ordered. All assets purchased with fraudulent funds to be seized and liquidated. The Range Rover, the furniture, the equipment from the studio, all of it gone. Mum cried. She had been crying on and off since the night of the gala. I had seen her twice in 4 months, and both times she looked like she had aged several years. She reached for my hand when the sentence was read out, and I let her take it, not because everything was fine, it wasn't, but because she was my mother, and she was sitting in a federal courtroom watching her favourite child be taken away, and I was not going to make that moment smaller than it already was. Dad didn't cry. He sat with his hands on his knees and his jaw set, and he stared straight ahead. He had spoken to me properly for the first time 3 weeks after the arrest. He had called me on a Tuesday night and asked if I could come over. I went. We sat at the kitchen table, and he put the documents I had given him at the gala on the table between us.
He didn't apologize with words. He just said he hadn't understood what Kate had been doing and that he should have listened to me at the house that day. I told him that I knew. We didn't hug, we're not that kind of family, but something shifted and I think we both felt it. The financial recovery was going to take time. The equity Kate had stripped from their house through the forged loan was partially recoverable through the restitution order, but not entirely. They were going to have to sell and downsize. The country club membership was gone. The good plates and the long table under the pergola would end up in a smaller house in a cheaper suburb. I had organised a referral to a financial counsellor through one of my AFP contacts, someone experienced with fraud recovery for families. Mum had resisted at first, then she went and came home and called me to say it had helped. That was something. After the hearing, I walked out of the court building alone. The sky was flat and white, that specific Melbourne winter sky that gives nothing away. I sat on a bench outside and I opened my phone. I pulled up my credit file. Score 812, status clean. The fraudulent loan had been removed following the AFP investigation and a formal correction request. Every trace of what Kate had done to my file was gone. I closed the app. I thought about the girl who used to sit at that brunch table and pour herself a glass of water and make herself small so the room would feel easier for everyone else, who had spent years being the background, the drab one, the one who didn't take risks or make moves or build empires. I had watched Kate build her empire. I had watched it fall, and I was still here. Same Honda, same flat in Footscroy, same plain jacket. Nothing about my outside had changed, but I had closed a file case with my sister's name attached to it, and I had done it cleanly, and I had done it right, and I had not lost myself in any part of it. That felt like enough. Spencer texted as I stood up from the bench. Good result. Team wants to know if you're available for a new referral. Complex one. Multi-state. I smiled at my phone. I typed back. Send me the file. I walked to my car, started the engine, pulled out into the Melbourne traffic. No rage, no celebration, just the quiet forward motion of someone who knows exactly who she is and has absolutely nothing left to prove. The grey rock doesn't shine. It just outlasts everything thrown at it.